It's a Wednesday. It's a Weather Wagers Wednesday. Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Tomaso, and alongside of me, the only person alongside of me this week, because Brett decided to take a little trip to the beach, I want to welcome in Dave Shiner, my co-host for this week, our Edmundo Sosa off the bench, if you will.
Try to do it. We'll bring in the lefty, as they say. You know,
Hey, why not? There's been a lot of excitement here in the sports world, perhaps a little bit of drama too, which we'll get into in a little bit. But first, I want to remind everyone that you can find us pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts or video casts, whatever you want to call this whole production. You can find us at abc27.com. That's one of our primary locations, in addition to ABC 27 News Plus on your smart TV, wherever you get your podcasts, including Amazon, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We are there. And again, our YouTube audience continues to grow. Like and subscribe so you too can get our updates. I know as soon as the podcast posts, my phone starts to blow up and show me that, hey, it's coming up. So they do work, and it's good to get those reminders because sometimes you can just forget that, hey, there's a new episode waiting for you. But I want to start out our discussion briefly today, and I believe I said it on this podcast that the Philadelphia Phillies, while it was a daunting task ahead of them to play the Padres and LA on a West Coast swing, and then come back, and of course, the way the schedule's been, you end up seeing some of the same teams in a quick succession. Now we have the Padres at home to start out this week with an interesting little setup of the schedule coming as well. But it has gone about as good as it possibly could, except for the clunker there on Sunday, Shiner. Are you feeling pretty good about where things stand? 2 games above 500 there, at least maintaining that winning pace.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we were looking for, is just to continue to win series, and they've been doing that under, Big Don Mattingly there. We did have the one drop out there in LA, but I think the offense has been a little hit or miss. We're either blowing up a ton of runs or skating by with a 3-2 win, kind of like they did last night.
Best record in baseball in one-run games.
Yeah, so there you go. And I mean, you got Marshy that went, I believe, 4 for 4 last night. He's still in the either second or third slot for the batting title right now. So, I mean, that's a huge surprise. And we still get our Schwarber bombs and, even a little Bryce Harper bomb here and there, which we had the equalizer yesterday in the game, which was a big hit.
And
sure.
I think that you bring up a point about Schwarber and Harper, and while they've remained somewhat hot, I actually think they quieted down a bit heading out to the West Coast. Yeah. And guys like Marsh, until he jammed his wrist, had kind of picked up the slack. One guy that is trying to also pick up the slack that I am a fan of, and I have to admit that I have some bias here, but Adolis Garcia, I guess, came back on the off day on Monday from all reports and took a lot of BP, and the results at least may not have been flashy last night, going back to Tuesday night's game, but hitting a line drive, it was caught for an out, but then getting a single. If he provides any type of production, he is lethal in the outfield. And I know everybody wants to move on and try to find the next 300 hitter. I mean, his offense is very similar to outfielders we've had before, whether it's Pat Burrell, even Rhys Hoskins, as I mentioned before, is a comparable, because when they get hot, they're fun to ride. And when they get cold, it's really hard to defend them. He's been in this cold streak. He got a hit last night. I mean, do you kind of see what I'm seeing, that maybe this turnaround's there? And then you have Justin Crawford that bunts for a hit last night.
Huge bunt, perfectly played. Guy drove off the base, and he got in safe there. I really am more impressed with Garcia's arm out there in the outfield. It's incredible. I mean, I don't know how many throws to home plate
he's been, third. He's made some great throws to third.
He just gets a pop on the ball. This is a big comparison, but it reminds me of some of those BBs that Mr. Bo Jackson used to throw out there. Obviously at opposite field, but
Vlad Guerrero Sr. that would just unload.
It's just you don't think that there's a shot, and next thing you know, there's a play at the plate. I mean, it's unreal, and you can't replace that kind of defense. Now, if you can get that bat every now and then, we'll surely take it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping for, because even if they move him into some type of platoon role, if they get a left-handed bat to play the outfield, and they have one, by the way, in the minor leagues. I mentioned him a couple of times, Gabriel Rincones. Will he be a factor coming up? I'm not sure, but they are searching for more offense, and they are going to need it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, offense is down across the league. They might have to make a move or two, whether it's to get a bench piece, whether it's to get a platoon piece, but that star player likely is not walking through the door here at the trade deadline coming up. So The schedule here in June is interesting in the fact that they could continue to make up some ground here and maybe solidify their record over 500 a little bit more. So 2 more against the Padres. Again, 4 for 4 so far against the Pods. And you have Sanchez and Wheeler coming up in succession to round out the series. So good things could happen here, and fingers crossed, because knocking out the Padres here would be quite the feat. Even taking 4 of 6, impressive. 5 of 6 or 6 of 6, even more so. Watch out for the White Sox coming up. They have nearly the same record as the Phillies. They are young. They're energetic. They are pests on the base paths. This is not a series to overlook. Now we have Luzardo and perhaps a resurgent Nola pitching in that series, but we also have Andrew Painter, who has had his share of struggles. For everyone talking negatively about Andrew Painter, and obviously the Sunday game stands out, keep in mind, when he had JT Realmuto behind the plate, his pitch mix is different, and it was working for him. When JT left the game, that's when he gave up the 2 home runs. And I don't want to blame the catcher, so to speak, but there clearly was a difference in the game calling once JT was out of the game. And you just have to wonder, if he stayed in that game, if Painter gets a little more run.
Yeah, and I think was it in the start that Stubbs was catching for him the one time? And, as much as we love the locker room guy, he is not the same as the best catcher in baseball in JT. So you hope that's really where the discrepancies are in his game, because he has been either pitching a gem or like, hey, we're giving up 9 runs here. I mean, it's like, what's going on?
I think there's still a lot of potential there. Obviously, he's a rookie, and everyone that's claiming he's a bust already calmed down.
Yeah,
Cole Hamels pitched to an over 5 ERA in his rookie season before things started to settle down. You have to learn the game. You have to learn how to pitch to big league hitters, and he could be a large factor moving forward. Now, after the White Sox series, the Blue Jays away. This starts a very interesting road trip. I know we just came off of one, but there's yet another one looming here. Blue Jays 7:07 start times in Toronto, and while they are the defending AL champions from last year, they've kind of fallen on hard times. They are actually below 500 right now, and I'm sure there's some panic in Toronto because they too have spent a lot of money on their roster, but there's a lot of talent there. That, I think, is going to be a challenging series. They can hit the ball. They have some pitching, although I think our staff is way better than they are. And then I think the real test is a road series against the Brewers. Now, there's been some interesting statistics about the Phillies. If you take away their games against the Braves and the Cubs, I believe they are a 10 over 500 team.
There you go.
So,
I mean, what more can you ask for?
In theory, we're right there with the pace of the Brewers, who again, get a lot of accolades for good reason. They have Jacob Bizarowski, which I really hope, people understand how dominant Christopher Sanchez is, but kind of like Paul Skeens, the young arm, the sexy arm, if you will. Everybody's on the Bizarowski bandwagon right now. We may see him in that series. We will wait and see. But I also like our chances with Wheeler and Sanchez. So, again, some interesting matchups coming up. I want to quickly detail the weather here for this upcoming weekend. It's going to get hot. If you're going to the games here either Friday or Saturday, the European model has low to mid-90s for Friday and dry weather, so humidity coming up a little bit, but no worry about showers and storms. Heading into Saturday, even warmer, mid-90s, more humidity, and showers and storms not that far away. So Saturday, something to monitor. There could be lightning in the area. I know we hate that phrase when it comes to weather and sports together, but I think even more so on Sunday. Sunday's the day I'm more worried about a possible rainout or issue getting the game in. Now, I think Major League Baseball is going to do whatever it can to get this series in, because I can't imagine the White Sox have another convenient time to come back to Citizens Bank Park. We've already been kind of a part of this where, whether it was the Red Sox series, I believe there was another one too, where it was inconvenient for the visiting team, in the case of the Phillies, or the visiting team to come back. This might be a late Sunday affair if they get it off the ground, because it is midday showers and storms. We will watch and wait to see if that does become an issue. Winds should not be an overall big issue. I would say, if anything, that might help with the heat on Friday into Saturday, a little bit of a breeze, possibly blowing out a CBP, which it was not last night on Tuesday. There you go. On Saturday into Sunday, the front gets closer, gets a little breezier. Again, showers and storms in the area on Sunday to watch out for. So if you have plans to go, or you're just watching as a casual fan, something to look out for. Also, the Yankees are at home. That's why I included the New York forecast. Okay, I've buried it for now. We have to start talking about our Philadelphia Eagles there, Mr. Shiner. And Boy, oh boy.
Lots happened in the last 48, we'll say.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I don't want to speculate too much. There's a lot of noise on Twitter and all over social media. It's not just Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not ending. Mm-hmm. And, for people that thought the saga of A.J. Brown was just going to magically wrap up, it is not. There was a lot of buildup coming into this, but the June 1st deadline really wasn't a deadline per se to kind of get this all going. Yeah. It was just about spreading out the cap hit.
It's all about the money. Always is.
While the Eagles are saving money over the life of this contract, I think it's over $100 million they're saving. They also take a dead cap hit this year and next year. So there is some financial ramifications to this move. But already video surfacing of AJ, thanking the Lord for this move and not lost on him how big it is. Some former players coming out, our old friends CJ, GJ coming out.
Yep.
What do you make of all this? I mean, this is not the level of Terrell Owens.
No, I don't think this.
At the same time,
yeah, and I mean, I think the biggest takeaway here, and we were all texting as it was happening. You got to remember what Howie Roseman just did here. Okay, he got AJ Brown for a first and a third, and
on a draft night.
On a draft night, and in 4 years, you had over 4,000 yards. You had 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. They got to 2 Super Bowls and 1 Super Bowl win, and now he just flipped him for a first and a fifth. So basically, Howie bought a Super Bowl with a 3rd to 5th pick swap. That is GM of the millennia type moves right there.
Well, right. And so here's the issue we talk about a lot on this show is that you can't fall in love with your own talent, and you got to know when to get rid of guys.
Yeah,
and
which Howie's been doing for years now. He
right.
knows when it's time to kind of move on. And even with like the CJ, GJ thing, like he kind of bounced around a little bit and still quite hasn't found a home like he did here. And, maybe the writing was on the wall there. I don't know. Howie does it again.
Well, and what we'll never know, and this is what's hard as fans, is how the team is gelling together, how it's working in the locker room, who has beef with who. And while these are grown men making a lot of money, it seems like there are some trivial drama points that come up. And, whether there is something with Hassan Riddick, I mean, people keep pointing to that there might have been some background drama. That did A.J. Brown want him removed from the situation? And then when A.J. Brown and apparently his wife no longer got along with Jalen Hurts and his wife, was there a conceited effort to make Jalen's life more miserable?
There's some weird information coming out about that right now, too.
Right. And so, you don't want that festering. Jordan Mailata also very candid in some of his comments saying that, thank God this is over.
Yeah, it's time to move on as an organization.
Right.
You're just waiting for that June 1st date was almost more pain than the actual transaction
and
itself.
So that's why, to go back to your point, it's so salient to say that this was a win for Howie Roseman because not only were there these background issues, there might also be some medical issues. We don't know for sure, but some talk about
a knee.
Bad knees or knee problems for A.J. Brown, which at the beginning of this past season, he was sidelined or at least slowed by a knee issue. To get value when you had almost no leverage, no other team's really that interested because the Rams moved on and picked up Myles Garrett. That was the other possible destination. So you're not going to trade for both guys. I don't care what franchise you are and how you don't care about
money.
Your picks.
Doesn't work.
Money doesn't work, and the players, again, you can't have too much talent on one team. It doesn't work out as we're learning. But he had no leverage. Got a future first round pick, and the key to this is it's a first round pick in 2028. And the feeling is that pick could be in a better situation draft order wise than 2027 because you're assuming that the the Patriots are going to have a very good season this year and could be toward the bottom of the first round, whereas maybe 2 years from now, maybe they're not in as great of a situation. And I really wonder at the end of the day, Howie being Howie, what's the next move? There's always something coming. Does he use this as arsenal to continue to improve the roster, or does he sit back and wait for that 2028 pick or maybe move it closer to that draft? There's always the next domino, right?
Yeah, and you know what? He already addressed the situation by drafting Mekhi Lemon, and which the reports are he may be injured now too. It's training camp, whatever.
Hamstring issue or soft tissue. Sit him out. Sit him out. Don't force it.
You're gaining a first-round talent that everybody, I mean, the Biletnikoff Award winner that fell, how he makes a move to get it, productive player, you're already putting some wheels in motion. And then Mannion's bringing in a couple of his guys that he obviously loved from Green Bay. Now, they might be role players, your slot receiver here and there or whatnot. But the foot is still on the gas here for Howie Roseman.
Yes.
And who knows, like you said, what might be coming up or what might be brought in with these two picks coming in 2028. Does he package them up to get the best player available? Do you just get big depth out of those two first rounders?
He's
had
flip a great
it for a player like he's done in the past, So,
right.
I in Howie we trust. I do want to say I do love me some AJ Brown.
Me too.
I'm sorry to see him go.
Very sorry to see this all happen.
I'm a little skeptical of all the 5'10" receivers in the room right now, but you know what? That's why you have a Dallas Goedert and some guys who can make some big plays in the end zone there.
Well, and in preparing for this podcast, I was doing some look back at this past season. It's not like we had a great passing game this past season with AJ Brown on the roster, so. To me, even if they're a league average offense or maybe slightly better, we know the defense is going to be good. And so that coupled together should be a winning formula, especially in this division.
Yeah, and don't forget, there's a guy named Saquon Barkley still on the team who had a subdued season, although he still did make it to 1,000 yards, which, I mean, used to be the standard for a running back. Right. And you have less and less guys getting 1,000 yards with the platoon-style running backs that we've had. And you have a bona fide superstar still in his prime as far as I'm concerned for another couple years. And, that might have played into the whole AJ thing.
We don't know.
He wasn't focused on the offense anymore. And I don't care what anybody says. Devontae Smith is a legitimate number one that has been 1A for the last 4 years now. Let's watch him have 120 catches and 18 touchdowns. I know that's a little presumptuous, but hey, we'll see what happens. And if he does take the double covered and smothered technique here, that just opens up for everybody else on the field. And if we're truly running this West Coast offense, there's crossers, there's people open all over the field. Hopefully Jalen does not have a problem seeing that middle of the field and hits those receivers when they're open.
I mean, between the receivers and the tight ends, I think there's going to be open opportunities. And again, if the game runs through the running game and the running game's successful, it could be a lot of fun again. And we will wait and see because, again, we don't know after that 4-0 start, something was off with the offense. And the easy person to blame was Kevin Patullo for obvious reasons, but there might have been a lot more going on. So we get into Kevin Patullo, we get into the offense. We talk a lot about the draft coming up as well in terms of what they got back and how those roster pieces could fit. We were so excited. And I wish you could have been a part of this, but you have your day job as well.
Yeah, Mr. We got to get work done. But
we talked to the NFL Hall of Fame writer, Ray Didinger, again. We had him on the show 2 years ago, and we were so excited to bring up all these topics. And he didn't know about the A.J. Brown trade at the time. So this was about 7 days ago now at this point. We did the interview, and then the trade happened on Monday. So there was a gap of time, but he was hinting at the fact he didn't think A.J. Brown was likely to come back, and here are the changes they made in case he doesn't. So the interview still fits, still works out. It is a wonderful and insightful interview if you're an Eagles fan or even just an NFL fan. Ray has his finger on the pulse of everything. So without further ado, we're going to go in the spotlight and feature our interview with Ray Didinger. Well, we are very excited here on Weather Wagers. Brett and I, as huge Philly sports fans, growing up listening and reading Ray Didinger, we have the man here himself. He is an NFL Hall of Fame writer. He is a playwright, which we'll get into in a little bit, but also just kind of a Philly sports aficionado and expert. And that's where we kind of want to lead things off here, Ray, that what makes Philly so special in terms of its sports? The fans seem connected. You can't help but notice how well they travel to every single stadium, every venue. The Phillies and San Diego Padres, we just saw this kind of play out in the last week, that a lot of Philly fans there. Is it the fact that, throughout Philly sports history, they're not always good at the same time, our teams? They're good now? Or is it just the history of being a sports town through the ages that makes what happens right now so special across the sports landscape?
Yeah, I think you describe it very well. I think Philadelphia is a very unique place in many respects. But the way it identifies with its sports teams, the way it supports its sports teams, is a big part of that. And I do think that the Philly fans are louder and more supportive and more loyal than the fans in other cities. I think that is a truism. I think it's been proven over time. You just made the point about, well, the Philly teams are all playing pretty well right now. Does that account for it? No, I would say that it's a constant. I mean, the teams, Lord knows, and over the years, and you guys are Philly fans too. I mean, there have been a lot of ups and downs, and the fans have been there all the time. Sometimes they're cheering, sometimes they're booing, but they're always there. And that support is something that these teams count on and survive on from year to year. And is it better when they're winning? Is it better when the Phillies are in the World Series? Is it better when the Eagles are in the playoffs and going to the Super Bowl? Absolutely. But even during the downtimes, the fans never abandon these teams and they continue supporting these teams. And why is that? I don't know. I think the easy fallback and, what people generally say is, oh, it's blue collar town, the town of hard workers. And, they're tough people and they love hard hitting Chuck Bednarik kind of football. And I guess that's true to some extent. But I think there's a demographic aspect to it that makes sense. I mean, Philadelphia is unusual in the cast of American cities in the fact that Philadelphians, they tend to be people that this is their home. Most Philadelphians, most other cities, big cities, you have a lot of people come and a lot of people go. And there are people that are living there now that were born somewhere else. And that's the nature of Philadelphia in the big cities. Philadelphia is different in the sense that people in Philadelphia, man, you're born here, you live here, you're raised here, you die here. And people here in the city put down deep, deep, deep roots that go back generations. And so if you're here now, there's a very good chance your father was an Eagles fan and your grandfather went to Connie Mack Stadium and watched Richie Ashburn, and your great-great-grandfather went to see the Philadelphia Athletics back in the day. I mean, and that's just a part of who you are. That sort of gets handed down to the people here in Philadelphia. And the teams in this city, all across the board, be it whatever sport, that's how people in this city identify themselves. They identify themselves as Eagles fans. They identify themselves as Phillies fans. And that's one of the things that make sports in this city so great. You don't necessarily have to be able to dissect all the X's and O's or know all the stats, but you know that when the Eagles are playing on a Sunday, you're watching. And USA Today, just a couple weeks ago, did a poll where they ranked the football cities in America. And they interviewed coaches and players and interviewed people in the media. And Philadelphia came out number one as the number one pro football town in America. It was Philadelphia was number one, Buffalo was number two, Green Bay was number three, but Philly was number one. And I would not argue with that. I think that's a truism.
I think we're going to get into some of those points here about the Eagles coming up.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned about Connie Mack Stadium. My grandfather had on his back porch 3 original seats from Connie Mack Stadium, and I always, as a kid, wondered what they were. And then he described that, when that stadium came down, he was able to secure some of those seats. And you're right. I think a lot of people in Philly and the outskirts of Philly have so many roots here that it just becomes part of your blood. It becomes part of your life. And let's talk about that now because we want to start with the Phillies. And Phillies fans are currently in this kind of weird dichotomy right now, Ray, of loving what's happening with this team, and it's a special group of players, but also growing a little bit weary here of not winning a championship yet. Nobody should tell fans how to feel, of course, especially not Phillies fans. But aren't we currently in a pretty special time for this baseball team? And is there maybe a little too much negativity? Of course, if you're on social media, I suppose that's true. I just wondered what your opinion was on how special the Phillies run has been over the past 4 years here.
It's been really good. I mean, they've been in the postseason every year. And I think there's a sense that not that people are down on the team, not that the people are giving up on the team, but I think the fans here are pretty savvy. And I think their view of the team right now is that if the window isn't closed, it's closing. And you look at the age of this team, you look at the age of its best players, it's hard to argue against that. And there's a feeling that maybe their time to win it all was a couple of years ago. And they had that opportunity. They had a couple good playoff matchups. They had a couple teams down, couldn't put them away, and wound up losing. And the organization, the general manager, Dave Dombrowski, keeps coming back with the same guys, and we're going to run it back again because we were in the playoffs last year and we have a chance to win. And I think the fans here view this team as a good team, a team that has a very good chance to go back to the playoffs again. But the feeling is that maybe the best opportunity to win the whole thing was a couple of years ago. They got off to just a horrific start this year. I mean, they were playing just awful. And the team made the decision to change managers, and they moved on from Rob Thompson and promoted Don Mattingly. And since Mattingly got in the manager's office, they played better. But still, you see same problems with this team. I mean, they'll go through stretches where they're really good and they're winning games. And then the way this offense is and the way this lineup is, there are a lot of holes in this lineup. And you have a lot of guys hitting 215. And you got the big guys who drive in some runs, but they get to the postseason against the better teams and against the better pitching, and they just have trouble scoring runs. The pitching's been really good. Sanchez has been great. Luzardo has been very, very good. Zach Wheeler is back and looks healthy. It looks like the starting pitching is fine. And Duran gives them a real closer guy you can count on in the ninth inning. But the problem remains, and the great fear of the fans remains, that they're going to get into the postseason, and that offense is just going to dry up. We'll see. I mean, maybe it won't this year, but I think that's kind of what I don't think it's negative. I don't think it's a negative feeling of the fans necessarily, because the attendance certainly doesn't reflect that. But I think it's a feeling that, we might get there again, but I'm not so sure. I think maybe our best chance to actually win a World Series was probably a couple of years ago.
I think you make some great points there about the fear, maybe the anxiety that builds as we get closer to the playoff time. But before that, we have the trade deadline. And if you put on your Dave Dombrowski hat, let's say you switched roles for the day, you mentioned the 215 hitting, you mentioned the power hitters, you mentioned the stellar pitching, probably the cornerstone of the team. What would Ray Didinger do if you could to make a move here before the end of July? Or I guess now it's early August is the trade deadline.
It would be to add a bat, preferably a right-handed bat. But I don't know where we're going to go for that. I mean, they moved Castellanos in the offseason and brought in Garcia, and that certainly hasn't moved the needle. And a couple of your young players that you thought were going to emerge as stars haven't done that. I mean, Bohm has really struggled. Stott has really struggled. But if you're talking about the trade deadline, it would be, I think the pitching is fine, assuming everybody stays healthy. You're fine in the starting rotation. Your bullpen looks like it's pretty well together. You need offense. You need guys that are going to generate some runs and get you through those rough spots. And you're probably going to have to pay a high price to get somebody like that. And Dave Dombrowski has been reluctant to make that kind of a deal. But if the team continues to win and gets themselves in a position where second half of the year it looks like they have a really good chance to get to the postseason, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure made on Dave to do something to put some more pop in that offense, because they go through stretches now where, even though they're winning some games out on the West Coast, you look at the box score, 3 hits, 4 hits. The pitching's carrying them this far, but to actually get to World Series and win it, you need a little bit more consistency and depth in the offense.
Well, that is going to be the fun part. We hope fun to watch how this team evolves and tries to get to the playoffs in the second half of the year. It's a long summer, and we're going to continue to watch the Phillies and maybe what Dave Dombrowski does. But moving on to football, a team that has won 2 championships in the last decade, the Philadelphia Eagles, and a team that, Philly fans are excited to see take the field this fall with some changes at the OC position especially. But let's ask you, Ray, how did the Eagles make out in the draft just a few weeks ago? Is Howie still working his magic?
I thought he did really well. I thought that they did very, very well. The first pick, Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver from Southern Cal, is a very, very good player. And no one really knows how the A.J. Brown story is going to play out. My hunch is that he's probably not going to be on this roster when the season rolls around. And the moves that the Eagles have made in this offseason with bringing in other receivers suggest that that's the case. And Mekhi Lemon, I thought, was one of the 2 or 3 best players at his position in this draft. And, Howie made a very smart move on draft night and trading up from 23 to 20 to sort of literally steal Lemon from the grasp of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were on the phone with him and they were saying, okay, our pick is coming up and we're going to take you. And the Eagles were sitting at 23 and Howie jumped right on it. And he called and he made a trade to get up to 20 to get Mekhi Lemon. Actually, while he was talking to the Steelers, it was very, very slick maneuvering by Howie. He got himself a really good young player. So I think he's going to come in and have an immediate impact in helping this offense. And Eli Stowers, who was the second pick, the tight end from Vanderbilt, also a very good player. They really didn't get, well, in both cases, last year, assuming that Lemon plays in the slot, which I think he will help you there. The Eagles got very little from their slot last year. They really did. I mean, the only production they really got were from the 2 wide receivers. You look at the yardage and the totals and the slot, they got nothing. Lemon will have changed that. And at the tight end position, Dallas Goedert had a really good year, maybe the best year of his career, but they got very little from that second tight end. And they like to play with 2 tight ends a lot. And so Stowers will change that. I mean, Stowers is a guy with an awful lot of talent. Won the Mackey Award as the best tight end in college football last year. And I think he's going to come in here, and he's not going to push Goddard out, certainly, but he'll give them the flexibility to use a lot of what they call 12 formation and give you some more production at that second tight end spot.
So, going back to Howie, contrary to belief, he doesn't necessarily make a lot of big free agent signings. Occasionally he will. It's more trades. It's more through the draft as of late, and it seems to have worked, especially since he came back into this role after Chip Kelly. But your thoughts on the signings he did make, getting some depth behind Quinyon Mitchell, also trying to establish some edge depth, some outside linebacker depth, obviously a big trade on draft day, which he seems to kind of count as part of the draft with the Vikings. Can you just go over a little bit of that there for the fans?
Yeah. Howie isn't considered normally a big free agent guy, but when the right opportunity is there, he'll take it, as he did with Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
And that was one of the biggest offseason moves of anybody a couple of years ago, and it helped this team win a Super Bowl. And I think that one of the areas that they felt like they needed to improve or re-support was they needed another edge rusher. They needed somebody else to put pressure on the quarterback, especially when Jalen Phillips, a guy that they acquired last season at the trade deadline from Miami, and helped the team. I mean, Phillips came in and really helped them. And I think they wanted to retain him. But he was a free agent. He wanted to play the market. And when he got out there, he just got a huge offer, and the Eagles couldn't match it. So I understood why they did what they did, and they let Phillips walk. But they had to replace him. And Grenard, the guy they brought in from Minnesota, is Jonathan Grenard. He'll give you that. He was a double-digit sack guy in Houston, double-digit sack guy in Minnesota. Last year was a down year. He had some injuries and didn't play as well. But I suspect that it comes back healthy, that he'll once again be a guy that's going to get some pressure on the quarterback, and that's what they needed. But overall, the defense is in pretty good shape. I mean, last year, even though the season fell short of everyone's expectations, including mine, the defense played well. The defense kept you in every game, gave you a chance to win every week. So this offseason, and you saw it in the draft, so many of the moves are all geared towards improving the offense. And that's what they needed to do, and I think Howie's going about doing it. Now they're in OTAs, and they're starting to ramp up towards the preseason, have a new offensive coordinator. brought in Sean Mannion from Green Bay, and he will now be the guy building the offense and calling the plays on Sunday. And so what this season is going to come down to is really going to kind of be, what is the working relationship between Jalen Hurts and Sean Mannion? How well do those two guys get along? Do they see the offense? Is their vision of the offense the same and compatible? And how does Sean Mannion handle being under the microscope, which we certainly saw what it was like for Kevin Patullo last year. I mean, he was under the microscope, and right from the first day of training camp. What is this guy going to be like? How's the offense going to look? And when the offense underachieved, he paid the price for it. The Eagles went out and brought in Sean Mannion, and we'll see. I mean, there's not much of a track record there. He's a very young guy, never really been in this position before. He was playing in the league just a couple of years ago. So he's something of an unknown. But Nick Sirianni interviewed him, liked him, and in this very small sampling that we've had last few days, Jalen Hurts so far says, I like working with the guy. He's got some good ideas, and I think we're going to work well together. We'll see. It's early. But this season, I think the defense is going to be fine again. But this team is going to go as far as the offense allows it to go, and that starts with the quarterback and the OC.
Well, and I was going to say, my next question was, do the Eagles have the right men in those leadership roles for another championship? And yeah, obviously the answer is we'll see. But, Nick Sirianni, he has taken a lot of heat too in many ways, but they're reworking the offense. And then what do you make of Jalen Hurts, Ray? These two guys, the head coach, the quarterback, obviously they need to get along and they need to be the leaders of this team. Jalen Hurts is already a championship-level quarterback. Now I guess the question is, with Nick Sirianni, can he get to the next level and win multiple?
Yeah. You're not going to win in the National Football League if your head coach, and your quarterback are on two different pages. They got to be working together. They don't have to love each other, but they have to understand what the offense is and have the same vision for what they want it to be from week to week. And that sometimes they definitely went through some bumpy times last year. And I think that because Kevin Patullo was a friend of Sirianni's, that they had coached together. They came to Philadelphia together. Nick gave him this opportunity to become a coordinator. And I think he wanted to give him the widest possible latitude to be that. I think at midseason, when you saw the way the offense was just sputtering, I kept waiting for Nick to kind of say, you know what, I think I kind of need to get my hands on this and get things back in order. And he tweaked a few things, but he didn't really take the offense away from Kevin Patullo because I think he wanted to give him every opportunity to get it right. Fact is, he never did. So at the end of the year, they had to make what I think was a pretty obvious change and go get another offensive coordinator. We'll see how Sean Mannion is. But Nick and Jalen are the one thing you can't argue against is their record. Their winning percentage as head coach and quarterback is the best of any in the league. They've been to the playoffs every year since Sirianni's been the head coach. And Jalen Hurts has already taken you to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them. So they can do it. You have seen them do it. And that's why so many people are talking about moving on from Nick Sirianni or moving on from Jalen Hurts. I don't get that. I understand the frustration because I felt it last year too. But every team in the NFL is looking for a quarterback that can win them a Super Bowl. You have all the measurements and the arm strength and the size and the height and the weight and all of this stuff that you think creates the profile of a winning quarterback. But the one question you always have to ask is, can this guy win us a Super Bowl? And you have a lot of guys in this league that have a lot of talent. The Joe Burrows and the guys like that who seem to have it all, they've never done that. Jalen Hurts has done it twice. and gotten you to the Super Bowl and played his butt off in both of them. And in the last one that you won, he was the MVP. So he's answered the big question. Can he win you a Super Bowl? Yeah, he's done it. It's there. We all lived it. We saw it. Now, you got to find a way to surround him with the right people and the right coaching to allow him to do it again.
And to that end, I think something special with the team right now is Brett and I growing up watching the Andy Reid era, and Jim Johnson was just so revered. But now steps in Vic Fangio and kind of exemplifies Philadelphia, if you will, kind of larger than life figure, has entertaining press conferences. The defense is kind of this cornerstone now. Can you talk about, kind of this wilderness the Eagles were in between Jim Johnson and now Fangio, and how special this coordinator is and how good the fit is overall?
Yeah, Vic is, you're right, that Vic he's not from Philly, but he's from the area. And got his start in professional coaching with the old Philadelphia Stars of the USFL. That was when I first met Vic. He was coaching the Stars on that team with Jim Mora. And he was just a linebacker coach then. But Jim Mora recognized what a terrific coach Vic Fangio is. So when the USFL went under and Jim went to the NFL to coach the New Orleans Saints, he brought Vic Fangio with him. And down in New Orleans, Jim Mora's defensive coach. His defensive coordinator was a guy named Monty Kiffin, who was one of the best in the league. Vic worked under both those guys and learned from both of them. And then he's been in the NFL ever since, made a lot of different stops. But the one constant is wherever Vic goes, the defense improves. You look back over his history with all the different teams he's been with, his defenses statistically are always top 5, top 6. I mean, they're just there. And it's because he has a system that he believes in. He teaches it very well. And he does the thing that good coaches have to do. And that is he identifies what the strengths of his players are. And he doesn't ask them to do things that they're not capable of doing. He looks at his guys. He sees what they do well. He sees what their strengths are. And he fits them into the offense that allows them to do what they do well. And he's got some really good players, some really good young players that they drafted a couple years ago. A couple years ago when they were the defending Super Bowl, they were the defending NFC champs, and they got up to that 10-1 start, and it looked like they were going to go back to the Super Bowl again, and everything fell apart. If you look back on that team, that was the year the defense betrayed you. It wasn't the offense; it was the defense, and the secondary was bottom third of the league, and it's just hard to win in the NFL playing that way. And it caught up with that team. The end of that year, the defense just collapsed, and they wound up going to the playoffs and getting bounced in the first round. That's when they brought Vic in, and then they had the draft where they said, first thing we have to do is we have to improve our secondary. We can't win with this secondary. And again, Howie Roseman did a great job in that draft. The first 2 picks were Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who were 2 kids who stepped in day one and improved this defense. And right now, I'll tell you, watching Quinyon Mitchell now for 2 years, I don't know the better cornerback in the NFL. I mean, Patrick Surtain, if you ask most people, who's best cornerback in the NFL right now, most of them probably say Patrick Surtain, and he's really good. But I watch Quinyon Mitchell week in and week out, and I think he's every bit the equal of Patrick Surtain, and that's high praise. But this kid is really, really good. I mean, every week he goes up against the best receivers in the league and shuts them down. And Cooper DeJean is a kid that came in and became sort of carved out this niche as a slot defender, and he's very good at it too. And you've seen Vic this week just said, my plan for Cooper is he's still going to play in the slot some, but I think in our base defense, he's going to play safety. And I think he's the perfect guy to play the safety position. He's smart. He's very physical. He's a really good tackler, has a nose for the football. And, wherever they put this kid on the field, I think he's going to make plays. But I think this year his role is going to be a little different, and I think he's going to be terrific.
Well, and as you said, Vic puts people where they can succeed. So I think that's important too, that we trust him and the players trust him to do that. Last question here about the Eagles, and then we're going to end the interview, Ray, with a couple of things you've been up to. But where do you put this current run that we're on compared to the Andy Reid era? Because for the most part, Eagles fans have been spoiled. I mean, we are one of the most consistent franchises in the NFL. Probably behind the Patriots when they were going on their run. I mean, it's just been Jeffrey Lurie building teams and using that to sustain success with Howie and the draft and these moves that they make. And here we are, 2 Super Bowls later, and fans are still clamoring for more, which they should. It seems that the Eagles are just one of the best run franchises in the league. How do you compare this with that Andy Reid era?
Well, I mean, you would have to say it's better because they've won the Super Bowl, and the Doug Peterson team, they won a Super Bowl too. The Andy Reid era, which went 14 years, and Andy left here as the winningest coach in franchise history, was a great era, and they got to the Super Bowl, but they didn't win it. This team has won it now, and if you had to put them on a scale, you'd have to give this team the edge because they put 2 Lombardis in your lobby. And Andy, for all that he accomplished, did not. He's won some Lombardi trophies, but he won them out in Kansas City. But I think your original point is the right one, which is I think you kind of have to look at the Jeffrey Lurie ownership and how successful it has been. I know we have a young generation of fans here now, and I see them every week and tailgating outside the stadium. And I don't want to say they're spoiled, but they weren't there at Franklin Field in the Joe Garrett years. They weren't there through the Jerry Williams and the Eddie Kayat years. I mean, when Dick Vermeil came into Philadelphia, this team hadn't had a winning season in 13 years. Wow. And you never even thought about them going to the postseason. Now it's almost like it's almost like a given, and it's almost to the point where the winning is taken for granted. And the only question is, okay, are we going to get to the Super Bowl? Not that are we going to win the division? Yeah. Are we going to get to the playoffs? Yeah, no problem. Well, it isn't that automatic. And to build a team that can do that year after year and sustain it the way this team has is really remarkable. And it reflects well on the entire organization, starting with Jeffrey, and then going through Howie and the various coaches. I mean, Jeffrey's changed coaches. I mean, he's gone through, Ray Rhodes and Andy Reid, Chip Kelly and Doug Peterson, and now Nick, and have all won. Even the coaches that he moved on from, they all won. There isn't a single coach. There isn't a single coach that he brought in, and all of them were question marks when he hired them. None of them were all that well known. I mean, Chip Kelly was known as a college coach, but not in the NFL. And Ray Rhodes was an unknown. Andy Reid was absolutely an unknown. Doug Peterson was a backup quarterback guy that's what you remember him for, but nobody thought of him as a head coach. And Nick Sirianni was an unknown. These guys were all, when the hiring was made, the general reaction was, who? And yet they all came in here and won. So you got to give Lurie credit. I mean, he's really not swung and missed on any of his head coaches. And the organization reflects that. They have a lot of stability. And they are now one of the elite franchises in the NFL. When you talk about, years ago, Jeffrey and Joe Banner, as then president, got a lot of criticism when they talked about, we're the gold standard, was what they said. And they said that and they hadn't won anything yet. Well, now you can fairly say they are the gold standard. And I mean, that's one of the things I found frustrating about last year, because I really felt they were the best team last year. I mean, they were clearly the best team 2 years ago when they rolled through the league and rolled through the Chiefs and won this. There was no doubt they were the best team in the NFL. And I thought last year coming in, I thought they still had the best roster. And it still really bugs me that they, in my mind, kind of underachieved. Because I really think that as good as that team was, and last year in what I don't think was a particularly great year in the NFL, I don't know if there were any great teams out there. I thought the Eagles had a terrific opportunity to go back to back. And I still to this day think they should have. And that was disappointing because I know they're better than that. But if you look at the overall stature of this team and the overall health of this team and their ability to achieve success and sustain success, which is very hard to do in the NFL, the way things are set up. You can get there, but it's hard to stay there. This team has done it through 2 decades of Jeffrey Lurie's ownership. And it's credit to a lot of people in the organization, but you really kind of have to start with Jeffrey. It's very hard to win in the NFL with bad ownership. It's very hard. I mean, all you had to do is look at what happened with the Washington Redskins. I mean, they were a great franchise, one of the elite franchises, a proud franchise, won 3 Super Bowls, a great coach, Joe Gibbs, all of that. Everything was going fine. Dan Snyder bought the team and they went straight down. And same team, same fan base, all of that, but bad ownership changed everything. It's hard to win with bad ownership. And the Eagles fans, one of the things that they really have to understand is that Jeffrey Lurie is, to me, one of the very best owners, if not the best owner in the NFL. And they, as a fan base, are the beneficiaries of that.
Great perspective, Ray. Really appreciate all the NFL talk there, the Eagles talk. I just want to wrap up here. Last time we had you on the program, we talked about Tommy and Me. It was actually at the Hershey Theater at the time, and that was very exciting. I understand there's been some follow-up work done on that. I actually saw the trailer for a documentary about Tommy and Me, and then I understand you are also working and completed another play. So let's just talk about what you're up to and what you're looking ahead to.
Yeah, I never thought I would be a playwright, but I guess I am. Tommy and Me is the story of my hero worship for Tommy McDonald, who was an Eagles player in the 50s. As a kid growing up in the 50s, he was my favorite player. And because my family used to spend our summer vacations up in Hershey, which is where the Eagles had their summer camp, I got to meet Tommy. And he became like a big brother to me over the years. And we became very good friends. And when I became a sports writer, I kind of began leading the campaign and the charge to get him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which ultimately happened. And then he asked me to be his presenter, and there we were, standing on the steps of the Hall of Fame with my boyhood hero. I mean, definitely a dream come true. And I just thought it was such a cool story and such a fun, feel-good kind of story. Lord knows we need feel-good stories these days. I just sat down and said, you know what, let me just try and write something about this. So I wound up writing a play called Tommy and Me. We debuted it in 2016 in Philadelphia, and it's been running for 10 years. And it in itself has been such a remarkable success story that Sam Katz, a film producer in Philadelphia, made a documentary film about it that Dan, you just mentioned. And the documentary film is called Boys to Fame, BOYSTOFAME. And people can check it out. If you want to go boystofame.com, you can find it online and see it. And it came out, Sam finished it, and it came out in January. And it's people have really liked it. I mean, it got great reviews. Critics have really liked it. And it tells the story. It tells the story of our relationship, and it also tells the story of the making of the play. So that's really fun. And then I wrote another play that we put on the stage last fall, which was called Spinner. And it's a story about a hockey player named Brian Spinner Spencer that I got to know back when he played the NHL back in the early 70s. And I interviewed him and did a couple stories about him and his life growing up in British Columbia, and how he grew up with a lumberjack father whose whole mission in life was to see his son get to the NHL. And the pressure that he put on him and the life that they had together. And he got him to the NHL. I mean, the dream came true, but as often happens, it's about the price that you pay to achieve your dreams. And the Spinner Spencer story ultimately became very tragic, both for Brian and his father. But it was a remarkable story that I sort of fell into as a newspaper man, and then got to know Brian, and I decided, I think this could be a play too. And so I sat down and wrote that, and the Delaware Theater Company liked it, and they put it on the stage, and it did really well. And we're going to bring it back again at the Players Club of Swarthmore in January of next year. So folks can be looking for that. The play is called Spinner, and it will be at the Players Club of Swarthmore in September. In January.
Man, I will say, I mean, it's just funny that, for everybody that knows you as a sports writer, stories like you just mentioned can happen to sports writers too, because you're around all of these people. And so what do sports writers do, Ray? They write. And that seems to me what you did. In this case, you wrote 2 plays, and we would encourage everybody to check them out because they really are great. And we want to look at the documentary too. So thanks for sharing your story with us again. And I guess just to wrap up, what's ahead for you, and what are you looking forward to here the rest of the year?
People always say to me, I thought you retired. And I actually did announce my retirement in 2022. It hasn't quite worked out that way. The fact that the Phillies continue to win and the Eagles continue to win keeps my phone ringing, which is fine. I mean, I love it. I mean, this is how I spent my life. And who doesn't love talking about winning teams, especially in Philadelphia? So that's been great. And Glenn Macnell, who was my radio partner for 20 years in Philadelphia, he said, why don't we just keep this thing going? I mean, I know you don't want to do the weekly shows. I know you don't want, but why don't we just keep our thing going? So we've done that. And he and I are now doing stage shows where we go out and we have one show that we just actually did last night called Sports Movies Night. And we show clips from famous sports movies, and we talk about the making of the movies, how the movie was cast, how it was shot, what the budget was, and all that stuff. And this year, we adopted the theme of Americana sports movies in honor of the 250th birthday of America. And sports movies now are all movies that are sort of about the American dream, which is what most sports movies are about anyway. So we do this and we show scenes from Miracle, the story of the 1980 Olympic hockey team. Obviously, Rocky is the ultimate American dream story. Field of Dreams, all of those. So Glenn and I are now doing this sports movie show on stage. And we just did one last night that was really a lot of fun. And we also created a show called The Greatest Moments of Philadelphia Sports History, where we put up what we think are the 10 greatest moments in Philadelphia sports history, and we talk about those. And for those, it's Glenn and me and Joe Conklin, the great Joe Conklin, the comedian and impressionist. He joins us on stage, and we walk the audience through the greatest moments in Philadelphia sports history. Glenn and I providing the history, and Joe providing the voices and the humor. So we've been doing that, and that's been really fun. And then, the 2 plays. Tommy and me has run for 10 years. And people often say to me, do you think you're going to write another play? I said, no, I kind of doubt it. But then the more I kept thinking about the Brian Spencer story and how that, even though I wrote it, the original story in 1970, it never left my mind. And I decided, I think this could be a play too. So I sat down and wrote it, and now Spinner is a reality. So to answer your question, what's ahead for me? I don't know, because a lot of this stuff I didn't foresee. I never thought I'd spend 12 years at NFL Films making movies, but I did. So I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of great opportunities come along. I've had the opportunity to work with some great and very talented people. And I think as long as I'm in this town, and as long as people are still playing sports, which I suspect they will be, I think I'm probably going to be, if not right in the middle of it, somewhere on the fringes of it and enjoying every day.
Well, let's certainly hope there's some parades in our futures as well, and some championship football or baseball, or even we talked about hockey, and maybe the Sixers can get their act together too. Ray Didinger, thank you again for being our guest today. Best of luck to you and to your plays. We'll talk again soon.
I really look forward to it. Thank you for having me on, guys, and I hope we get to do this again.
In the Spotlight series with Ray Didinger, and just a lot to absorb there. I mean, it's encouraging to me that he is a big Makai Lemon fan and also a fan of the Grenard trade. Kind of kind of the two biggest holes leading into the draft, even coming out of the draft, it seems like Howie had a plan, as usual, made it all work. And now, on top of which, again, he didn't know this at the time, but now there's money being freed up thanks to the movement of A.J. Brown.
Yeah, that's the big thing. All the planets had to align, so to speak. And I just want to say, I mean, Ray Diddy, the guy's one, he's a legend, but like, what a well-rounded personality. Not only is he a Philly fanatic, he's a playwright. I mean, the stuff he's doing on the side is amazing, and all these, out of retirement,
it's inspirational. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe he even said, as long as these teams keep doing well, my phone's going to keep ringing, and good for it. I love to hear some Ray Diddy up on the mic there, and what a great interview, and what some great insight.
I always do wonder, when these high-profile writers or experts in the field go to retire, and then all of a sudden their area of expertise just takes off like it did. Do you ever fully retire? And I guess the answer is no. But very interesting too. The part of the interview I really appreciated, because I felt this way too. The roster last year was in such a great place for the Eagles. And it just feels like they blew a golden opportunity because the rest of the league was so far down. And I just remember watching that 49ers game. And I at first didn't think the game was in doubt. And then some quirky things were happening. Even the defense let them down to some respect. It was just such, the path was there. Everything was aligning. Other than, say, the Rams, I felt like they had a very clear path to the NFC Championship game, to the Super Bowl. And it just fell apart. And now, on the heels of this trade and some of the drama coming out, it just makes me sick. It makes me sick because somehow the Patriots avoided a lot of this, over the years, even to some extent, Kansas City. But of course, the Eagles had to fall victim to some internal strife or pressure that seemed to derail this season.
Yeah, and it is really funny too, because both the Alshon Jeffrey end to his career in Philly, and the A.J. Brown ended with timely end of the game drops that might not have won them the game, but definitely would not have lost them the game if they made that catch. And it just
at least makes it more interesting.
It's very interesting. And yet again, their arcs are very similar, that Howie got Alshon for a couple of years, got a Super Bowl out of him, and then realized, hey, it's time to move on. And you know what we didn't hear much about after he left our team? Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, and that could
I don't think
again.
that's going to be the same with AJ. I think he'll still put up some big numbers out there in New England, and allegedly he's been a fan of them ever since he was a kid. I don't know how many of these AI pictures are coming out with him in jerseys,
the carpet,
and, all this. But hey, I think we wish AJ good tidings moving forward. But it's time to look at the new season and the new talent out there. And according to Ray, they got it. They still have probably one of the best rosters in the NFL. He's got to put it together.
And he's mentioning the golden standard, and that's why, to me, it's a real head-scratcher why, if you are a star player in this league, why would you not want to be a part of this? And even if you have some personal beef with a player or two or whatever, and you have antics by reading a book on the sideline, and you're still welcome back, I mean, I think that's the other aspect of this, and I kind of want to wrap this up with this discussion. People wonder what Nick Sirianni does. Clearly, he held this team together enough to get to 5 straight postseasons, have 2 Super Bowl runs, one of which a winning run. Probably could have won the other one too if you squint.
Realistically,
and, some things happen and go your way. With all this going on, it does really amaze me that they've had this level of success and are still winning games the way they are. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it kind of speaks to how he's able to manage these personalities, manage the conflict, and this didn't blow up into the T.O. situation. This didn't turn into a public spectacle in many ways. It seemed like it was somewhat cordial even at the end.
Yeah, and I mean, Ray even hinted toward the fact that how spoiled we are in the Jeffrey Lurie tenure of owning this team. People forget that the Philly teams, there were some tough times there in the 70s and 80s, and we had a little bit of good gamesmanship with the Cunningham era and stuff. But then Jeffrey Lurie takes over the team, hires Andy Reid, hires Doug Peterson, hires Nick Sirianni. All three of them made it to the Super Bowl and pretty much had winning records their entire career here. And that's just a testament to, people question Nick, but obviously Jeffrey sees something in him and wants him still on this staff.
Well, and what's common here? They also question Jalen Hurts, which I still just don't understand. Even AJ,
I'm over that.
AJ kind of defended the whole situation, saying, I don't know why people keep focusing on the personal with me and him. Yes, it's not what it was, but it's not like we're going at each other's throats, and people need to move on from it. And I agree with that. I mean, what do you want? Do you want Kevin Cobb? Do you want Carson Wentz? I mean, to me, this guy is still a proven winner, and we're lucky to have him.
He's earned his stripes, and until he gives me a reason not to, still think he's QB1 here in Philadelphia for years to come.
And even if he's not, I trust Howie to figure it out and
QB
get the
factory, right?
QB
You never know
factory.
who's coming in next, but hopefully that's not the case, because I think number one is the guy. Sure.
Number 1 is the guy. I have a feeling we're going to hear more about number 1 and number 11 even as we move into next week as well. So we'll be back with more updates on that. We'll have more updates about how the Phillies are faring. Hopefully take 5-6 from the Padres, maybe 6-6. That would be truly something out of this world. And again, keep piling on. Keep getting above 500. Put yourself in a position here as we get closer to the trade deadline in early August to make a run. And I think they're primed to do so, especially with this pitching. Knock on wood.
We sure hope
free.
so. Sure hope so.
Well, Mr. Shiner, I appreciate your time today and helping us out. A reminder, again, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There are our handles. You can also send us a note if you want to hear more about some of this drama, or maybe you're tired of the drama too and we need to move on, or you want to hear more about the Phillies and their success. We've had a lot of listeners join us, I believe, since we started talking about the Phils. So very exciting. Weatherwagers@gmail.com is how you reach out to us. Again, we're here recording every Wednesday here this summer. We'll move back to Thursdays in the fall and maybe even some special episodes in between as things begin to ramp up.
And call that a tease.
Call that a tease. I've had a couple of Penn State nightmares here recently that I hope don't come to fruition, but I want Brett's take on that here next week. So in the meantime, Brett is soaking up the sun, getting his tan on some beach somewhere warm while we are here in an air-conditioned studio. Again, Mr. Shiner, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
We are out for this week. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care. Have a good one.